Then we lie beneath the shady tree. I love her and she's loving me. Good day, sunshine.
Welcome to the Unitarian Universalists of Transylvania County. I'm Reverend Bob Renjilian. I am joined today by our Minister Emeritus, Reverend Ernie Mills, who will be playing music. In this service, we are glad that you could be here this afternoon to celebrate Sally MacMillan's life on her birthday. We've come together from different places. We are at different stages in our journey through life, and our paths are varied. We look at life in different ways. One thing we have in common. At one point or another, and to some degree or another, our lives have touched the life of Sally MacMillan, and so we've turned aside from our accustomed ways and gathered here to give expression to the thoughts and the feelings that arise in us at this time of loss and completion. Let us be honest with death. It is not separation. It is separation. It is loss. It is sorrow. But neither let us pretend that death is more than it is. It's not annihilation. As long as memory endures, her influence will be felt. It is not an end to love. Humanity's need for love is, from each of us, is in fact boundless. It's not an end to joy and laughter. Nothing would less honor a vital soul than to make our lives drab. So let's be honest with death, for in that honesty we will understand life better and ourselves more deeply. But even in saying this, it is for us to realize first that death has not brought us here today. Life has. It is not given to us to know much about death, nor do I think we really want to. It is a fact of life. While that fact is inescapable, our consciousness, our awareness is always oriented towards life. We didn't come here because a person has died, but because she and we shared life. So it is that we've gathered to celebrate Sally's life, to consecrate the memories and the meanings that are a part of you because of her, and in so doing proclaim the glory of life itself, even in the face of loss. It's also for us to realize that there's no such thing as life in general, only life in particular. As death so competently reminds us, life in particular today means an individual so unique that from the world's multitudes we cannot replace her. And while the loss of her uniqueness may be more cause of grief and sorrow now, it's even greater cause for joy for all that she has brought to our lives and the many ways in which she enriched us. I now invite Ernie Mills to come forward and play for Sally.
Thank you, Rob. Chris, it's an honor to be here. Thank you for asking me to do this. And I believe it's Sally wanted these songs played, right? Yeah. And I think Sally would love it if you sang along. Sally was a trip.
That's a good word.
She was on her toes all the time, especially when it came to the caring for other people, whether she knew them or not. She cared deeply for humanity, and it was really a pleasure to get to know her.
There's no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell below us. Above us on the sky. Imagine all the people living for today.
following is not a formal eulogy, but rather notes Sally made to be included in one. But though these suggestions or instructions, through these, her character shines brightly, and those who knew her will recognize her bold personality. She advises us not to worry that, in her quote, "I will come back as a cardinal." It is said that the red bird is an uplifting, happy sign that those we have lost will live forever so long as we keep their memory alive in our hearts. Sally was born in Vermont, the daughter of John and Mary Hinchcliffe, and she attended Arcadia University and Tufts University, where she worked in the placement office of the latter while embracing the diversity on campus of staff and students. A life-changing experience after growing up in Lexington, Massachusetts. She met the love of her life, John Christopher MacMillan, while living and working on Hilton Head Island, where they were married on the beach in 1983. And after building their first house on the May River in Bluffton, South Carolina, they maintained their own medical business for over 20 years, selling to hospitals and doctors in 6 southeastern states. In 1996, Chris and Sally moved to North Carolina, where she had the vision for a Unitarian fellowship and a free medical clinic in Brevard. She worked tirelessly as a founder of both this congregation, the Unitarian Universalists of Transylvania County, and Volunteers in Medicine, later the Free Clinic. As conservation chair of the Sierra Club, she collected hundreds of petition signatures to protect the land, which later became Gorgeous State Park. Sally was passionate about politics, and her work on Barack Obama's campaign earned her an invitation to the White House. Together with her Quaker friend, Rosemary Keller, she started weekly Saturday peace vigils in front of the courthouse that continued for 10 years. She was a frequent contributor to letters to the editor columns in the newspapers. Sally embraced the John Burroughs quote taken from his 1926 essay, Accepting the Universe. He wrote, "I shall not be imprisoned in that grave where you are to bury my body. I shall be diffused in great nature, in the soil, in the air, in the sunshine, in the hearts of those who love me, in all the living and flowing currents of the world, and go back into this vast, wonderful, divine cosmos." As for the illness that led to her death, Sally was clear in her conviction to live each day as fully as possible. After being diagnosed with cancer, she wanted to live a natural life without surgery, chemo, radiation, or drug treatments. After witnessing the tremendous toll these measures took on her younger brother, Dick, before dying from glioblastoma, brain cancer, she was grateful for her husband Chris's agreement to conceal her illness, an effort to avoid pity or sadness on the part of others. In her notes, Sally called Chris a rock and apologized for him having to carry the burden of keeping her secret. Sally did not fear death as an end, but viewed it as a natural progression in the cycle of life, a new beginning into the unknown. She felt that she had enjoyed a wonderful life, pursuing her passions while living authentically and intentionally. As her life partner, Chris stood beside her through what friends and family often considered a quirky lifestyle, showing a lack of interest in current technology, choosing a vegan diet, buying clothes from thrift shops because the money would go to a good cause, expressing concern for the less fortunate. Sally was public about her beliefs, as I alluded to earlier, writing hundreds of letters to editors of newspapers, often raising the eyebrows of those who knew her, and even resulting in at least one cease and desist order. One of Chris's friends, the husband of an equally vocal wife, once said, "You know we married shit stirrers." Once referred to as a lightning rod, Sally embraced the criticism as an accolade. We'll have more music from Ernie Mills, and then I'll announce the sharing section. We'll start with Chris, and then Bob, and then others who might want to share something about Sally.
Thank you, Bob. Beautiful, beautiful words about Sally. I think this song is pretty appropriate for Sally. Because every time I saw her, she would have a smile on her face. She would always greet me with a smile. And even after some of my sermons like this, she would still smile. Sing along as you know the words. Here comes the sun. Here comes the sun. I say it's all right. Little darling, it's been a long, lonely winter. Little darling, it seems like years since it's been clear. Here comes the sun. Here comes the sun. I say it's all right. Little darling, I see the ice is slowly melting. Little darling, it seems like years since it's been clear. Here comes the sun. Here comes the sun. I say it's all right. Sun, 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 here it comes. Sun, 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 here it comes. Little darling, the smiles returning to their faces. Little darling, it seems like years since they've been there. Here comes the sun. Here comes the sun. I say it's all right. It's all right. Beautiful. Beautiful.
Thank you, Irving.
Yeah.
This is the time for sharing from family, from friends. As I said, I'll invite Chris forward now, and then Bob Holder, her friend of 70 years, and then I'll invite others of you, if you're willing to speak.
Thank you all for coming, I really appreciate it. So, Bob and Ernie summed up Sally pretty well, I think. I mean, that's who she was. But I just got a text from a good friend of Sally's, a lady who used to date her brother in high school, and they became really good friends. She's an artist in Boston, lives out on Cape Cod, and this just came in at like 2:30. Sally was a good friend of mine, and a lifetime friend, whose intelligence, integrity, and kindness to all she met made the world better to live in, including her successful campaigns in preservation of nature, electing President Obama, and growing her UU church. She lived on through her good faith and works. Then I've got one from our nephew. He sent me this last night and wanted me to read it. He's Sally's oldest brother's boy. I guess that's a southern way of saying nephew. So let me see if I can find him in here. And who is in here somewhere? There he is. He joked about it. He said, you know, I'm kind of an old school 90s guy. So he said, I kind of rap. So So I don't know if I can do the rap, but I'll read what he wrote. He said, in the Sally tradition, Sally lived a life with a mission, always with a purpose, always thinking and wishing. Peace, love, and much to be desired, how to help others and rally for peace and never tired. She had so much to say and so much to do, always on the phone trying to rally the crew. Keep the cause going and rally for love. No person had more drive for their cause. Sally would pick up the phone and make calls all day, trying to get the votes and not let them vote the other way. So much love in her heart for her husband Chris, by her side, their love never paused. So much to give, writing thoughtful, clever letters. We'll miss her dearly and love her forever. Sally will always be in our hearts. And I have one more to read from a friend that we went to the UU fellowship with in Savannah, and Hilton Head. He went to both. If I can find him in here, I've got a lot of messages. So, Ernie. Well, I wrote down some of the notes he said. He said, Sally was always a good friend to my wife Lynn and myself. We'll miss her dearly, and we know that you loved her much, and it'll be hard at first, but everything will work out, Chris. It was a pleasure to know Sally, and we'll come see you soon. And that was my messages. Sally was a good wife to me for 43 years. We were together 50 years. We lived together 6.5 years before we were married. She was my rock. She says I was hers. But people who knew her realized she was very devoted, and she was very selfless. That's one thing I learned a lot about her, was that she always looked at other people's strife and whatever she could help them with. And I think she's the type of person we can all learn from. Thank you all. Bob? We've been friends since first grade.
That's right.
1956.
That's right.
Listen to Alice.
First grade.
Sure.
We've been friends since first grade.
That's the first thing we ever listened to was Hound Dog.
70 years.
Thank you, Reverend Renjilian,
We were-
and Minister Emeritus Reverend Ernie Mills for the beautiful music. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for having us and for being here today in celebration and in honor of the life of Sally MacMillan. My name is Bob Holder. My wife, Donnie, and I are from Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Chris MacMillan and I grew up together in Winston-Salem and became best friends in 1956 during the first grade at Whitaker School, and it remained close throughout the last 70 years. My wife Donnie and I were saddened when we received the news of Sally's passing, as we had come to know her as a truly remarkable person. From our first meeting Sally at her parents' house on Hilton Head Island in 1981 to the joyful occasion of their marriage in 1983, we were drawn to her warmth, friendliness, and compassion. Sally was always a wonderful host during our visits to their Bluffton, South Carolina home and following their move to Brevard, North Carolina. We always enjoyed our time together, especially visiting them at their Pemaquid Beach home in Maine, where Sally challenged us for a swim to brave the 55-degree waters off the coast and treated us to some of New England's most famous seafood. Sally loved to laugh, tell stories, and having grown up in Lexington, Massachusetts, she was well versed in Revolutionary War history and was a rabid Boston Celtics fan. Sally was very passionate about politics, environmental conservation, and her work with organizations to aid those citizens less fortunate and in need of economic and humanitarian support. She worked tirelessly to reach those with the most pronounced needs, regardless of race, religion, or political nature. I always appreciated Sally for her intelligence and conviction. Sally and I did not always agree in politics, and sometimes not at all. I am more on the conservative side, and Sally, being on the liberal side, gave us occasion for many spirited debates over email, text, and at times over the phone. And we did have a few of those conversations, didn't we, Chris?
Yeah, we sure did. We sure did.
I always appreciated that we could have those conversations. In these polarizing times, it is often difficult to have them, but Sally proved you could. Sally was also always thought it funny that Donnie and I had raised two beautiful daughters, Christina and Bobby, both strong and independent women. Our daughters also have differing political views. Once when I had remarked over the phone that I was talking politics with my more liberal daughter, Sally, with her quick-witted humor, said, "Well, Bob, if anyone needed a different perspective, you certainly do." Sally was truly one of the best conversation partners. Sally had this gift of spontaneity, which I loved about her, and appreciated her steadfast hope that the world could live in peace and war would no longer exist. That would be my hope as well. In closing, let me say that also Sally is no longer with us, as we wish that she were. We will remember her spirit, character, her humor, and the love she showed for all of life. As we celebrate Sally's life today, let us follow her example in the ways that would make her proud, because that is what she would want, not sorrow. To Sally, you will forever have a place in our hearts. Thank you.
Bob, I have one email that just came in from one of
Come on, hang up, Chris. Yeah.
I'll read this, it's really good.
That's beautiful job.
This friend of hers said, "I wish we could be here. We have very fond memories of Sally. She was always kind and generous. She also had great liberal values, and contributed her time and resources to help make the world and community a better place. It is nice to think of all the joy and happiness Sally and Chris enjoyed together. May she rest in peace." Thank you, Bob.
Are there others in attendance who would like to speak?
I'm Debbie Domer, and I'm a resident of Sherwood Forest, where Sally and Chris lived for many years. And Chris and Sally are the Vegemacks, we always called them, and they called themselves too. And the Vegemacks were an unforgettable couple during the many years they lived in Sherwood Forest. I came to know Sally as part of the crowd that played tennis together in those good old days before pickleball captured us. Sally was clearly the best player of all of us, but she put up with the rest of us with such grace and with such humor in a way that made it so much easier to laugh instead of cringe at all of our mistakes. Because of Sally, those Saturday morning matches were joyous times. Same with golf, a game she played with ease and grace, usually winning with her memorable old set of wooden clubs. The Vegemacks were the ultimate pair of optimists and nature lovers who spent a lot of their lives on the move, annual visits to their summer homes in Maine and traveling around the country camping and generally working and playing their way through life. even though we know she had her serious side as well. Sally was the kind of person I often think of when I'm feeling really down in the dumps. Her smile, her energy, her laughter still remind me of all that is good in life.
Come on up.
I'm Suzanne, and I also live in Sherwood Forest. I spent about a month down here, just driving everywhere. And I found, finally, on the last day before I was going home to Chicago again, I found this perfect house. And so I put a bed in on it. And I'm back in Chicago trying to sell my house there. And I get a phone call. And it's somebody Sally who? And, you know, the realtors don't like us to talk to each other, the buyers and the sellers. But she found me, and she called me. We spent probably an hour on the phone that day. And she really we both got to know each other very well. I mean, they had a music room. I had a music room. I had a sunroom. They had a sunroom. I could just see my stuff sliding right into that house. And family stayed in touch with me until finally I sold that house in Chicago and I could get down here. So, just busy moving in, and up the driveway, here comes Sally. Finally, I'm going to get to meet her. And with Chris, and with the neighbor across the road too. And so we all just stood out in the driveway and got to know each other, and I got to meet, she wanted to make sure I knew somebody there. And that kind of thing just continued with, she sort of put her, she was my only person that I knew. And she kept coming. One time Chris was in the music room, and Sally was in the kitchen, and she was like, Chris, you need to come and see. She put all of her dishes and all of her silverware in the same drawers that we used. She told me a story. It was so funny. I had received a hummingbird feeder, and there was a hook there, so I just said, oh, this is good. You know, I'll just put it right here. And of course, then one time when they came over, she was so amused. She said, oh, look, she put her hummingbird feeder right where we had our hummingbird feeder. And then she said, and then the bear came and just walked up on the railings on the deck and took the hummingbird feeder down. So, of course, I immediately took the hummingbird feeder down, thinking that there was a bear that was going to come. But Sally stayed in touch and just really became a dear friend, and she had that kind of, as I'm hearing from everybody here, she really did have a very nurturing caring for other people, and I miss her.
Thank you. I don't know if anyone else is on the edge of their chair waiting for a last invitation to come forward. You'll have time afterwards to be able to share, to have some coffee and conversation. So if you haven't spoken up here, I hope you'll share your stories with each other and with Chris. Ernie, you?
Most of you probably know this song from Louis Armstrong's version. I think about him singing that song during the height of the some of the racism that was happening in this country. I heard that song again in South Africa when I was working in a school for the blind, and one of the teachers was a blind instructor, and he sang it. And I think about Sally. She wanted this song, and I think that's really the mark of a solid human, and that is to, in light of your situation, your cancer's taking your life, and you can still say it's a wonderful world. So if you know the words, sing along. I see trees of green, red roses too. I see the moon for me and you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue, clouds of white, the bright blessed days and the dark sacred nights, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. I hear babies cry, I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than I'll ever know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
To close out our service, I have a poem by Rossiter Worthington Raymond that I will just light as an ending of these kinds of ceremonies. It's really short. It says, life is eternal and love is immortal, and death is only a horizon. And a horizon is nothing save the limit of our sight. No eulogy can fully convey all that was her life. No stone monument will epitomize who she was, and no tribute is ever going to capture her spirit. No history will do her justice. Only you can do right by her, and you can do so only by sharing your memories and stories, and most importantly, by living so that others will remember the best of her in how you go about your life. No higher tribute can any human being receive. Now, after the music, I invite you to please join us for coffee and conversation. One specific request or demand in Sally's notes about the reception was to provide equal exchange coffee, tea, and chocolate. She campaigned to support the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee coffee project that supports small co-ops worldwide, and saw no reason for her passing to abandon the effort. And Chris notes, something tells me a Cardinal may be watching to make sure we comply.
Yeah. Yeah.